Hey, man. What's good? It's your boy Quincy Murdoch with another episode of Not Just Music Podcast. How everybody doing, man? As always, back with the topics. We normally always try to keep it we try to keep it PG. We always try to keep it in the realms of showing the positive side of black. And we build ourselves on talking about the history of black. Sometimes the history of black comes with trials and tribulations and things that may be hard to talk about, but they're crucial parts to being black, our history. That's really why we talk about black history, right? So one thing we have to know is with our past, it's gonna be some unsettling things that we talk about, we have to address, with the black community, how far we've came. And things that might not look good always look good. And some things that may look bad aren't bashes on the black community or bad things saying about the black community. It's more of explaining the backstory of black and certain situations, why certain black people are the way they are, or why we think the way we think, how far we've come from a situation or our past. So I wanted to talk about something because this what I'm about to speak on is very heavy and it sells more than anything, and that's sex. Black history in the sex realm, sexually. And I want to read something because, I was doing my research and I thought this was deep. It was deep. And it kind of puts in perspective of sex, porn, and sex in the black community, how it's viewed. Why do we have those feelings? Why are we looked at the way we are looked at sexually sometimes, the black community? So I want to read something. Okay, it says black history surrounding sexuality is largely defined by racial stereotypes, sexual violence, and the struggle for sexual autonomy stemming from slavery eras, exploitation of black bodies, and the objectification of black men and women. Now, does that sound familiar? You know, um, if you think about it, like racially stereotyped, black women are more known to be curvy. Black women are more known to be sexually dominant than a white female. In the world's eyes, they feel that way. I think society has tended more into looking at black women as lust over love. And I feel like that's why, it's important for our black queens to present themselves right out here in the community and, broadcast their achievements because, as I just read, racial stereotypes, most black women are looked at as the hood rats, chicken heads, you know, only good for laying on their back, quote unquote. This is what the world thinks, which is totally not true to me. So stereotyping can be big in black communities sexually. Even with men, society look at black men as if we're just as super aggressive by nature. We can't love. We're not gentle. We're not gentlemen. We're just animals in the bedroom, outside of the bedroom, hardcore. And that's far from the truth because there's some great gentlemen in the world that's very romantic, that's very, loving, that's caring and respectful, especially being from down south. A lot of black men from down south are the most well mannered men ever. I'm born and raised in the South, and I can say I was raised with respect. And you hold the door, for the woman or your elders, or when you're walking, you walk closer to the street. Your female companion walk near the grass so she won't get hit. We were taught little things like that. Sexual violence has always been something that was, big since slavery. And I'll put it to the day is a lot of things that happened to us back then that happens to us now we normalize it as a black community. Like we'll say we weren't victims when we were victims. And I'll use this as an example. You could be 17, 18, young female, attractive, and you could have a 40-year-old that knows your age. And even though you agree to it, you sexually agree to lay with this man, be with this man, he knows it's not right and he's taking advantage of you. But in your mind, you're saying, I said yes, I wanted this because I did it. He didn't force me. But he manipulated you in a way to get what he wanted from you. So sexual violence advantages has always been happening towards the black community, especially the black women that were slaves in the day back in the day. These white masters, slave masters, they called them, would, take these black women from these black men and basically have sex with them, and, take advantage of them. And I see that now a lot, even in the porn industry, it seems like the most celebrated type of porn is white man dominating black women, and I think that's still a stem from the past, the history. You know what I'm saying? And something that needs to be changed. That's why I'm bringing light to this stuff. Enslaved people developed their own sexual customs and commitment ceremonies despite enslaved women's lack of legal protection and sexual abuse they face from enslavers. Post slavery stereotypes like hypersexual Jezebel and dehumanized brute persisted, shaping public disclosure and leading to historical avoidance of the topic by scholars. So basically, a lot of stuff that is not right, a lot of stuff we know that you know what I'm saying, that's against God's will. For example, we have made slogans and we have made terms and we have made it okay. You know what I'm saying? The same exact things that the Bible go against, we have kind of made our own way of thinking. We've made our own way of controlling what we feel is right and wrong. And for example, a man should be with a woman. We all know this. Like, no disrespect to your sexual preference or nothing like that. I respect everybody, whatever you do. But according to God, it was an Adam and Eve, man and a woman. People get mad at you when you bring the word. You're just speaking what's the word. I'm not speaking on my personal beliefs. My personal beliefs is you can do what you want to do. You can be who you want to be. Feel comfortable in your skin, but also know what God originated and wrote and wanted us to be and what he expects of us. That's different from an opinion. That can't be questioned. That's God. You know what I'm saying? So then it said sexual exploitation during slavery, 1619, 1865. And I'm going to list some of these. Sexual violence. Enslavers systematically sexually abuse enslaved people using their bodies for financial gain, pleasure, and punishment. What does that sound like? Um, Porn, as I stated earlier. A lot of these porn stars using their bodies, selling their bodies for money. Prostitution. You're selling your body. All of these forms are somewhat slave mentality. The pleasure, what I'm saying, of this lust. It's slave mentality. And the punishments. Some women are still getting captured and abused. Even in relationships are being abused and taken advantage of by these men, and vice versa. Lack of autonomy. Enslaved women lacked legal protection against sexual assault and were subjected to involuntary reproduction to increase the enslavers' wealth. Hmm. So a lot of situations, women are still, they don't really have protection like that especially when it comes to black on black. You notice The world really never has a problem when it's black on black. If it's a black man abusing a black woman, or if it's a, you know what I'm saying, it really isn't a big of a deal as if it was a black man abusing a white woman. If a black man was abusing a white woman, most likely he would be put under the jail. That's if he make it to jail. You know, we know the Emmett Till and the history of that. You know, him whistling at the white lady and they beating him for days and to eventually till he died. You know, that's history too. You can look that up. Emmett Till. It's not really a big deal when we do it to our own, but when we do it to their race, that's when it's a big deal. Forced relationships. Enslaved people, both men and women, were sometimes forced into sexual unions with white individuals for survival, to avoid punishment, or to secure better treatment for themselves or their families. Ooh, okay. So I'm gonna get personal. The way that I just read that, you know how um black women were forced to sleep with these white men to get better treatment. Basically, like the white man would say, I allow you to come in the house and work rather than be outside if you betray your husband, you betray your man. You know, I'll give you this if you give me your body. I give you
What's
rewards.
going on? It's your boy
Now, what does
Dewan
that
Marino
sound
from
like?
Not Just Music Podcast. I have a very special offer for you guys via morelabs.com. If you're that type of person who loves to drink coffee, but you don't want to always drink coffee, or if you're the type of person that doesn't drink coffee at all, but needs a very much needed push boost in the morning, we have something for you. Morning recovery supplement. It is very, very useful. It is very, very highly effective. Also, if you're the type of person that, you got drunk the night before and you wake up in the morning, you had a hangover, guess what? It works for you too. All right. So at the end of the day, if you head over there to morelabs.com, we have something set up for you already at checkout. All you have to do is enter the code NJMP and you will receive 25% off instantly. How about that? Can you beat that? Head over to morelabs.com, all right? Peace.
The welfare system. Think about it. People in control of the welfare system, a lot mainly are, you know, white, or I'll say a lot of black Uncle Toms that want to be white. Let's be real. They promise you these things. They promise you all this food stamps and they promise you this government assistance and they promise you all of these things, right? Only if the man is not involved. He can't live there in this government housing. He can't be there. But we'll reward you if you basically abandon family. Just forget family, choose money, choose free housing, choose all this material stuff over family. And the welfare system, I will say, I think played a crucial role into breaking up society and breaking up families within the black community and the communities altogether. But I'm speaking specifically on the black communities. I think that played a big role in the demise of black families, the welfare system. So forced relationships, like I said, they're basically forcing you into relationships now. You know, they give you all these fortunes and fame and free housing, free food, free this, free that. And all you have to do is just abandon your morals, abandon your respect, abandon what's right, abandon family, you know, and they'll give you that. So I think they switched the roles. And it's still sexual parts involved, but now more it's more like financially they'll try to take advantage of you psychologically. Stereotypes. The practice of stripping and examining enslaved people on auction blocks reinforced the belief that black women were naturally lustful and promiscuous. Okay, strippers. You ever think about when you're on that pole and you know what I'm saying? You're spinning around with your two piece. Sometimes you might be naked. Some clubs allow you to be naked, and you have that white man in the front throwing money on you, just throwing it. You know, you might have that black man up there too, but a lot of these older white men have money to just Bro, like that. They bored, got this money, and they just throwing it on you in the clubs. And a lot of black women, heard black women personally that was in the stripping business, was in the prostitution, and they would say, word for word, they would say, I only really like dealing with white men because white men are gonna pay me more. White men are gonna, you know, I don't really have to work as hard for white men. Some white men just want me to do crazy stuff like for 5 minutes and they pay me 10 grand, And that's how it was back then. Like a lot of these white men viewed our black women as just lust, like our needs, what we wanted, what they wanted, not we, what they wanted. So you can still see the similarities of all that goes on, within it. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. Um, it goes on to say the post-slavery era and lasting stereotypes. Let me get these in. So, white fright, the fear of interracial sexuality fueled racist attitudes and policies during the Civil War, Reconstruction, and beyond. Hmm. So, as we know, sometimes black and white can be looked down upon. Sometimes the white community doesn't really like black mixing in with their community. And you have vice versa. Some black feel like you should only date black. You should only be black. Like the Black Panthers mentality. You have people like that. And the black community feel like a black man should be with a black woman. A black woman should be with a black man. You have that. And that still goes on to the day. Believe in that. Jezebel and Brooke stereotypes. The historical association of black women with hypersexuality, Jezebel, and black men with uncontrollable lust and violence, Brute, continue to be used to demon and control black communities. They still stereotype us. Like I said earlier, they think of men as being aggressive, brutal animals, and they think of women as just being freaks. All they good for is laying on their back. All they good for is sex. And that's just how we've always been viewed. And somewhat to this day, some people still view us that way, which is far from the truth because it's a lot of great black people doing great things. Historical silence. The painful story of slavery, rape, and lynching made open discussions about black sexuality taboo, even for scholars. Yeah, as we know, the history, like, we have a lot of bad things happen to the black community. A lot of things. And as I stated earlier, a lot of these things aren't easy to talk about, but us as black people have been made to sweep things under the rug if it's sensitive because we don't want to talk about that. Leading into the families, like when something happened to you back in the day, this is the mentality. We've always been told family is everything in the black community. Somebody molested you, somebody does you wrong, you were told, most likely back then, don't say nothing. Or even if you went and said something that happened to you from a family member or a close friend, they would say you're lying. You would get crucified. So it made victims scared to come out. It made victims scared to express themselves. And me doing this, I feel is important because in the black community, we want to just, oh, that's touchy. That's no, let's not talk about that. Let's not do that. Let's not say that. But what souls are we helping by hiding the truth? What souls are we freeing that's trapped? Like, by not saying the truth, by not revealing the truth. And that's why this is important because this could save somebody that's enslaved mentally or still that something bad happened to them. Maybe this would give them the courage to come out, no matter if it's family or stranger. When you're done wrong, you should come out. You should get help. You should tell somebody your situation, what happened to you. I don't care who it is. Like, wrong is wrong. And you deserve to be protected. And you don't deserve to be depressed. You don't deserve to be overwhelmed. You don't deserve to feel like you were in the wrong. No, you weren't. You weren't. You were a great person that was taken advantage of, you know? And then it says, reclaiming and understanding black sexuality, breaking the silence. In recent years, some black scholars have begun to break the silence. See, what did I just basically say? And openly discuss the complex of black sexuality. We're more open. A lot of this generation are more open now to sexuality, our past, than the older folks were back then. Now it's more. You see more people being more comfortable in their skin. You see more people being honest of who they are, what's happened to them, telling their story. You see that, and that's a great thing because I feel like now people don't have to hide who they are. People don't have to lie about who they are. They can just come out and say it because we've made this foundation and laid this platform to where it's okay being who you truly are. And I think that's very important, whether we believe in it or not. Who are we to say how someone should live their life or what they should do? That's their life. We are nowhere to be able to judge because everybody might not agree with what we do. But my thing is just stick to who you are. Don't let anything influence you or take over what you do. Main thing is just controlling what you do and how you move. That's the key. Don't worry about how the world moves. And then it says cultural impact. Music, film, and television have painted black sexuality in various ways. Through the historical content, exploitation and sexual violence remains influential. And I started out by saying sex sells. If you want to sell anything, sell sex. Like a lot of things have went down. Movies aren't selling like that. Music had a demise at one point, like where it's up and down. Nobody's listening to music. Uh, Entertainment, television, whatever. You have sports. You have these things and businesses and organizations that peak, go up and down. But one thing that I noticed that always gonna sell is sex. Hate it or love it, like sex sells. And I really never seen no demise. Like people may be broke, they'll spend their last dollar on sex, a sexual favor. It's sad, but it's true. Sex sells, and I think that's why porn, all OnlyFans, all anything sexually will always have money. Like they'll never really go broke. I feel anything ran sexually, a sex business, sexually business, whatever it is, feel like they will never really see a demise because sex sells. But what I want us to do is get out of that old mentality. And I really brought this to your attention to show you, to awaken you and enlighten you. Like, if it's any of those things that you may be doing, maybe think about it in another perspective. When you up now, up there on that stripper pole, like, how they viewed us back then until this day, how some view us. Maybe that'll make you think more about it. Not saying change who you are, that's up to you. But I'm saying my main thing is to get you to think. At least think about it. You know what I'm saying? And if you think about it, you make your own decision. So once again, it's another episode of Not Just Music Podcast. I know I covered a lot this episode, but I think this was important. Till again, friends, love, Quincy Murdoch.